comics.
What's going on, YouTube? Thanks for tuning in for another video. In this video, we are going to dive deep. We're going deep into the difference between CBCS and CGC. This is a video I've wanted to do for a long time for personal research reasons. I really wanted to know what are the main differences and see if there was a clear choice between the two companies. I think you'll be surprised at the findings. First off, in order to do this, I got and bought the most recent CBCS case, which was new. It came out, I believe, in July of 2020. So this is their new case. And honestly, guys, first impressions, I like it. It's far and above what they had before, their previous versions of the case. It's way better. And this is the latest CGC case. So just to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, you know, it's the latest CBCS case and the latest CGC case. But for this video, I wanted to talk about everything surrounding the two companies. I want to talk about, and essentially that means breaking it down into two categories. One, the objective things, and two, the subjective things. Okay, so starting with the objective things, these are things that are facts, things that are undeniable, things that can be measured and looked at, just objective facts about the company, like the price, the structure of the case, the turnaround time, things like that. Those are objective. They cannot be debated. Then there's the subjective things like personal preference, personal vendettas against the different companies, and perceptions, perceived values over different things. So those are the two big areas, subjective and objective. So let's start with the objective. First off, let's look at the price, because that seems to be the most important factor to consider when getting your books graded. So the areas that affect how much it's going to cost to get your book graded are the same for both CBCS and CGC. And those things are the age of the book, the value of the book, whether or not you want pressing and imaging, and the turnaround time, and whether or not you want to fast track the process. So those four things are what determine how much it's going to cost to get your book graded. And just to give you an idea of all the different tiers and levels that you can have your book graded at both CBCS and CGC, here's just some from the CBCS website, and they're basically the same as the CGC. They just have different wording and names for the different tiers. But to give you an idea of how many different tiers there are, there's modern, expanded, consumer, 2-day modern, quick stream, rapid, 1-day, original art, reholders, fast pass, signature add-on, image add-on, slideshow add-on, pressing add-on. And those are just some of them. And each one of those has a different pricing tier for how much it's going to cost. So it really, I'm not going to bore you by going through every single tier on CBCS and CGC and compare the two, but I will tell you that I did do it on my own. I did all the research, crunched all the numbers, and I can tell you this: CBCS is about 10% less than CGC for the cost of grading. CBCS is about 10% less. And for pressing, CBCS is about 10 to 25% less than CGC. So to me, 10% less is not a significant price difference. When you're talking about the sale of a really fancy, expensive book that's maybe $10,000, then 10% is a big issue. But if you're talking about 10% and it's only $20, that's $2. To me, that's not very significant, and it's actually even less than that. So to give you an idea, we'll do an example of how much it would cost for CBCS and CGC for a particular book. Let's say a modern book with pressing. So say you got a brand new modern book, you wanted to give it a press, a full press. How much would it cost for CBCS? So for CBCS, a modern book valued less than $200, pressed and graded at CBCS would be $16 for the grading and $12 for the pressing, for a total of $28. Now this is if you're a member in any one of CBCS's tiers, and we'll talk about memberships here shortly. And at CGC, it would be $17 for the grading and $15 for the pressing, for a total of $32. So if you got a modern book with a full pressing, graded, valued less than $200 at CBC, there's a difference of about $4. Now, if you take the pressing out of it, if you just had a modern book that you wanted to get graded, no pressing, no extra add-ons, a modern book valued under $200 at CBCS is $16, and at CGC $17 for members. So it's a difference of $1. Okay, so it's not significant. Even if you had 100 books at $1 a piece, it's not a significant difference. So let's talk about the cost of membership. So CBCS has many different tiers for membership. They have free, bronze, silver, gold, and dealer. So they have 5 different tiers. Free is free, and dealer is dealer. You have to be a dealer to get the dealer membership. You have to meet a certain quota and maintain it to get that. So those probably aren't going to apply to us. So it's bronze, silver, or gold. And their tiers are a little different. It's a little strange. So the bronze, and I'm not going to go through all the details of each one. It really depends on what you're trying to do, what type of books you want to get graded. And so you'll just have to look at their website and wade through it yourself. But to give you an idea, the bronze membership level for CBCS is $100, and it comes with coupons. That's how they do their thing. So for $100, you get 2 2-day coupons and 3 fast passes. And those coupons add up to about $100 in value. So that's how they do their membership, is they give you coupons that equal about the cost of the membership. Now, what I don't like about this is that you could be getting coupons for grading tiers and things that you're never going to use. There's specific coupons for specific grading things, and it's highly likely impossible that you'll never use those. So I'm not really too fond of that whole membership aspect of it. Now, CGC, on the other hand, they have 4 different membership levels. They have free, they have associate, they have premium, and they have elite. Associate is $25, and you get 5% off of all of your submissions. So I'm not really sure why you would ever want to do that. I guess under only a very few circumstances would that make sense. But the premium membership is one that makes the most sense for people that are submitting books. The premium membership is $149, and you get a $150 credit toward any grading tier at CGC. So what I like about this is you get a $150 credit towards grading services, not pressing services, not imaging services, not shipping, just the grading itself. So you get a $150 credit that you can use on any of their grading things. That makes way more sense to me. Why do it with weird coupons? Just give them a credit. And so with the premium membership, you also get 10% off of each grading tier. Now with the premium, it's $300 for CGC, but you still only get the $150 credit. But you also get 15% off of the grading tiers. Now, that's an extra 5% off of the grading tiers. So if you do the math, it's really simple math. You have to spend at least $3,000 on grading services for it to make sense for you to have premium. You'd be breaking even. So that's about 150 modern books or so. So to make it simple, the elite package at $300 is only for people that are going to be submitting more than 150 books to CGC. And then you'd be breaking even. So it's really only for dealers and people that are doing large numbers of submissions. Most people it would make the most sense to have the premium membership. All right, so now let's talk about turnaround time. So long story short, the turnaround time is about the same for both companies. For CBCS, the turnaround time and we'll just look at, it's different for each tier, but we'll just look at one tier, let's just say modern. So the turnaround time for modern books at CBCS is 4 to 6 weeks currently. Okay, for CGC, it says 32 working days, which if you do the math, is about 6 weeks and 2 days. So if CBCS, you have 4 to 6, and for CGC, you have 6 plus 2 days. It's about the same. Best case scenario, if you hit the 4 weekend, the low range of their turnaround time, you'd be getting about 10 to 20% faster turnaround time. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it's the same. All right, so now let's take a look at the case itself, and we'll jump into another video. Alright guys, so I have two comics from each company, two from CBCS here, and they're both the new case, and two from CGC, both the latest version of the case. Something about the label I really enjoy. I like the blue color here of the CBCS logo. I think it looks pretty sharp, and you'll notice a difference here between how CBCS label looks and how CGC looks. The main difference is the grade on CGC stands out a little more because they have this white box around it, whereas on CBCS it doesn't stand out as much, but at least it is big, and it has the condition of the pages a little bit bigger. On the cover here it tells you all of the pertinent things that happened in that issue. This one is the first appearance of Miles Morales as Ultimatum, and has other information there. On the back, the label has a QR code which you can scan to get the grader's notes. So the next thing I want to mention about this case here is that the lip on the edge, so the lip on the edge of the case here, this lip is slightly less deep. It's slightly more shallow. It has less of a lip than the CGC case. And why that's important is the extra amount of lip here that CGC has allows it so that it's less likely for something that's sitting on top of it to actually scratch the surface here. I know it's tiny little detail, but these things are subject to scuffing, and if it has more of a lip, when things slide along it, it's less likely to get scuffed. So the CBCS case is probably more likely to get scuffed. Looking at scuffing, so both the cases have this issue. As you can see here, as I do with the light, there's major scuffing. This is a brand new case. This came, from one owner. It was in a bag. I mean, I know this scuffing is just from the actual case. And so in the past, some of CGC's older cases have scuffing to the inner well of the case, and that'll be denoted on some auction sites like not Comic Link, but My Comic Shop will say bad scuffing to the inner well. So there's nothing you could even do about that. That means the inner case that holds the comic had scuffing on it. So the newer cases don't have that issue at all. The newer cases for CGC don't have any Newton rings, and I'll put a picture up here. This is what Newton rings look like. And in some of the older CGC cases, not the oldest ones, but like 5-10 years ago, they had really bad Newton rings. So if you're buying a really expensive book that you intend to display, it might be worthwhile to ask the seller if there are any Newton rings, because they don't usually show up in pictures, but you can see them in person. But the new CGC cases, I haven't seen any Newton rings in those lately. But getting back to the scuffing, the new cases are pretty darn good. I don't see hardly any scuffing, especially when it's at a distance, like it's on a wall. You're not going to see any scuffing with either of these cases. Okay, so scuffing really isn't a consideration with these cases. Something that I do consider an issue with these is this inner well right here, and you can see kind of this little cross. That's the inner well that holds the actual comic book, and then that inner piece, that inner well, goes into the outer slab. Okay, on these CBCS cases, you can totally see this like vacuum seal mark, or like this heat press mark where heat was applied to close it off around the comic book. To me, it really shows. I mean, you can see on both sides and all the way around the book these kind of indentations or whatever to seal the inner well. And to me, when you look at it from afar, it does take away from the overall presentation of the book, whereas the CGC one, you don't see it. It looks like it's floating in glass. And when you look closer, on closer inspection, it does have it but it's way out here. It's way out there towards the edge, and it's less noticeable. That to me is a major consideration when you look at these two books from afar. One has those crosses all the way around it and one doesn't. It just looks less professional. This one looks like it's floating in glass. It looks really sharp, really clean. Okay, overall, when I take the case here on the side and apply pressure, like squeeze it, there's a little bit of give, a little bit. When you do that to the CGC case and apply pressure, same. It's about the same, a little bit of give. So the next thing that's a little disappointing about the CBCS case is you can see a little bit of perforation way at the very top of the label. And what that is it's a perforation line where they fold over. So the top part of the label folds over from the other part, and it leaves these little perforation marks that you can see. When you pick it up, you can see it from a distance. Whereas the CGC label does not have that issue at all. The top right here is seamless. It just looks cleaner at the top. So looking at the label from the top, CBCS made huge improvements in this area. Personally, I think the top of the CBCS case actually looks better than the top of the CGC case. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the color, but CBCS looks pretty good from the top. Now, do the two slabs fit together? No, they do not. CGC and CBCS do not stack together. The CGC case is slightly larger, ever so slightly larger than the CBCS case. So the CBCS cases do fit very well together. Another cool feature of the CBCS case is that they're vented, and you can see that right there, that there's a small little vent, and what that does is it allows the book to off-gas. And there's another one right there. So there's one on each side. These tiny little vents that are unobtrusive, basically invisible to the naked eye, and they allow the comic book to off-gas, and that eliminates the need for micro-chamber paper. And CGC uses a micro-chamber paper, and they put that in between the front cover and the first page of the comic, and it's because this case is entirely sealed, and that way it protects the book. It's a preservation process that CGC had as a boasting point, is that they use that as a preservation process. Now in the past, there's been talk that you need to replace the microchamber paper every 7 years, which is a major hassle to have to get your slabs reholdered every 7 years. CGC has come out with a statement since then saying that it is not necessary to ever replace your microchamber paper. So CGC says you never have to reholder it because of the microchamber paper. CBCS says you never have to reholder it because there is no microchamber paper, it's vented. CBCS also says that this is a sonically sealed case, and when you look on the sides, the main difference between CGC and CBCS is this small little tab right here that obviously is something that is used for CGC to clip or click the case shut. You don't see anything like that with the CBCS case. All in all, they both look really good, guys. They both look really good. Actually, up until this point, you know, I had strictly collected CGC cases because they looked so drastically different. The CBCS case looked so much cheaper and poor quality. It's gone miles ahead of where it was last time with this case. I honestly would be okay with either label, either case at this point. If I were to buy a book, like, I wouldn't mind having a CBCS case. Now, there's a lot of other things to consider when choosing which grading company to go for, but as far as the case goes, I'd be happy with a CBCS case. All right, so now that we've looked at the actual case itself, let's look at another objective thing, which is the resale price. And so it's really hard to compare apples to apples on this one. In order to compare the resale value of books for the two companies, you have to have the same book with sales on the same day at the same grade, right? So I have to be looking at, for example, Spider-Man 2 and a CGC and a CBCS 9.8 white pages that both sold on the same day, and look at those two prices. So it's not easy to do, but it was able to do it for this one. So for this one, I got this one for $77 at an auction on eBay. That same day, a CGC one sold for $165. Same book, same grade, different companies. So that's a difference of 47%. That was a really significant difference. But overall, the difference is CGC books sell for about 12.5% more than CBCS. So some other books that I looked at is Venom 3, First Appearance of Noel, both CGC 9.8. In a CGC 9.8 sells for about $400, and in a CBCS 9.8 sells for about $350. Okay, difference of about $50. Overall, there are anomalies with the difference in resale price, but it's undeniable that CGC books sell for more. They have more of a value. So if you are using the argument that, well, it's cheaper to get your books graded at CBCS, you're talking about $1 difference, or at the most 10% difference. When you look at the resale value, you're not saving money. You're losing money in most cases. Now, I will say about the price of the books, it looks like, especially with this new case of CBCS, it looks like the trend is that they're both coming together, that it's becoming more of an even playing field for the two companies. Back in the day when CBCS first came out, it was way more drastic, the difference in resale prices, and now they're kind of leveling out. All right, now let's look at the actual grading of the books. So this is something that's totally subjective. Grading by nature is totally subjective. It's the person giving their opinion on a thing, okay? So there have been a lot of YouTubers that have made some awesome content and videos around sending the same book to CBCS and to CGC and seeing what the different grades are that they come back. And here's the consensus about that, is it's all over the place, okay? Sometimes CBCS grades more strictly, and sometimes CGC grades more strictly on the same book. There's no trend. There's no way you can say for sure that CBCS grades harder than CGC when you look at the overall picture, okay? It's just all over the place because grading itself is subjective. But what can be said is that they're both really good. They're both really good grading services, and the main difference when looking at subjective grading is why did they grade things the way they did? And the only way to know why they graded something the way they did is by the grader notes. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, grader notes are something that the graders keep notes of in a database. It's not on the case. It's not written anywhere on the case. But it's in a database. And for CBCS, that is something that it has going for it, is to have free graders notes for any book for anyone, okay? And you can just go on their website and find the graders notes for the book. For CGC, you have to pay a fee based on the tier that the book was graded at in order to get the notes, unless it's your own book, okay? So CGC offers free graders notes to books that you submit. But if you want the grader's notes on a book that you didn't submit, you have to pay the fee. Grader's notes can be really important if you're trying to do something like crack and press a book. So oftentimes you can find a book at a low grade that has pressable defects, crack it out of the case, press it, get it regraded at a higher grade, and drastically increase the value of that book. Looking at the grader's notes is the best way to do this, to see if there's pressable defects. So some examples of what grader's notes would look like is, it could say something like right center front cover light fingerprints. Okay, so before you got that grader note, you might be looking at a book and go, why did this get a 9.0? And then you see the grader's notes say, oh, there's a light fingerprint on the front cover. And then you start looking and go, oh yeah, I do see that. It happens all the time. A lot of times you'll see a 9.6 or 9.4 and you go, why is this not a 9.8? and after you look at the grader's notes, it'd say, oh, slight spine stress on the thing, and you look at the spine and you go, oh yeah, that there is a little bit of spine stress there. So grader's notes are super useful, and CBCS offers them for free. So another major thing to mention is the signature verification process for the two companies. CBCS offers a signature verification program where they verify unwitnessed signatures. They have partnered with Beckett, another company that does signature authentication, and so you can send a book with a signature on it that they did not witness and have it graded and verified. CGC, if you send in a book with a signature on it, you'll get a green label that says qualified, name written on cover in marker. Okay, and a qualified label destroys the value of a book. So that is a slam dunk reason why you would get something graded by CBCS, is if it has an unwitnessed signature. A lot of times this will come up with like dynamic forces. They issue books that have certificate authenticities, that have signatures from the artists, but they're unwitnessed. So that would be a great opportunity to send it into CBCS. So to sum it all up, CBCS is slightly less expensive, but not significantly. The turnaround time, CBCS is slightly faster, but not significantly. The membership fee, CGC actually has a better membership fee structure. The case, about the same. Their CGC is slightly better in that regard. Resale values, CGC is significantly better. So with all of those things considered, I would have to go with CGC. I mean, I can't see a compelling reason to go with CBCS at all at this point, except for the signature verification. I would still, however, pay a lesser price to buy one, but I would never personally submit one, if that makes sense. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a note in the comments of what you think about the two different companies, why you would choose one over the other. I'm definitely curious to find out, and I'm anxious to see these two companies become more of a level playing field. It'll make collecting just easier as far as finding values and things along those lines. But I do appreciate you stopping by. Please hit a thumbs up on your way out if you enjoyed this video. Thumbs down if you suck at life, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Comically correct comics.